So thank you for filling in that survey. About two-thirds, 70% of you, this is your first time hearing from me or from us. So welcome. And the rest of you have heard us before, so thanks for coming back. Let me finish that poll. So my name's Ken. Today we're going to be talking all about AI agents, right? So if you've seen me speak or if you've seen me on LinkedIn, you know I talk about sort of AI and agentic technology a lot, and in particular how it's impacting white-collar work, sort of knowledge work around the world, both now and into the future. But you know what I think is interesting is that there are now use cases and real-life case studies of companies that are deeply agentic in parts of the world, and it's pretty easy to forecast how that's going to then flow through the rest of the global economy and impact all of our jobs. So that's what we're going to be talking about today, and there'll be some slides, a bit of theory, and then we'll be looking at Sapience, which is our enterprise agent platform. But a lot of the concepts that we'll be discussing and demonstrating are generic, right? The AI agent concepts that you want to wrap your head around. Now, webinars are better for you and for us if they're interactive. So within the GoToWebinar tool, there's a Q&A option. So find that and send me questions, right? Feel free to even do it right now. What I'd love to do is actually answer the questions you have in your head that perhaps you haven't asked before or haven't been able to get a clear answer to. And then also when we're doing the demo, it's way better for everybody if we have a practical sort of use case. So if you've got you've got questions or thoughts or things you want to see, or you want to give me a scenario to deal with, please do that, and I'll adapt accordingly. All right, let's dive in. And I've got a bit of a cold, so apologies for that. So this is the agenda that I was just talking about. So I'll pump on through. So look, the thing with AI agents is CEOs of both the vendors, so the supply side of the AI equation, as well as the consumption side, are not telling the truth about what's really happening with AI. Most of the sort of large decision making in and around AI is happening behind closed doors. Now, I advise a lot of companies, I advise CEOs and boards, so I've got a first row seat for a lot of these conversations, and I'm certainly not going to name names, but I am going to try and share the thinking that's going on in boardrooms, in investor committee meetings, right? IC meetings at PE firms, and what CEOs are thinking about AI with all of you. And there are CEOs in the audience today. I recognize the names, but we've got people from all shapes and sizes that come to these events. And look, the best way to see, what I think boards are really thinking is the headlines. So this is a smattering of headlines from the Wall Street Journal in 2025, and what we're starting to see again and again and again in the news are big companies announcing mass layoffs that are either all or in part driven by AI agents, right? So most recently, Jack Dorsey, CEO of Block, came out and said that he was laying off 40% of his human workforce and replacing them with AI agents. And, Jack Dorsey's somebody that has a big following, so a lot of people paid attention to that. But the most important thing that happened is his stock price jumped 30%. Now, there are a few things on earth that the CEOs of public companies track more than stock price movements, right? It's what their compensation is built around. And so there's a very clear market signal there. Jack Dorsey makes that announcement, his stock pops. I assure you that the CEOs of pretty much every other company in the S&P 500 watch that, and it will inform their behavior, right? Microsoft last year also announced that 30% of their code is now written by AI. Now that's staggering. Microsoft is one of the most valuable companies on earth, depending on the day, worth about $4.5 trillion. And all they do is write code, sell code, write code, sell code. Google's a big tech company, but they're really an advertising business. Amazon's a big tech company, but they're really a logistics company, right? Among the big tech companies, there is only one pure play software company, and it's Microsoft. And 30% of their core business is now being done by AI agents, which is pretty startling. Now, they also last year laid off 35,000 engineers, right? This one screenshot was then it was followed a few months later by another announcement. So there's enormous change happening in corporate America, and in particular, sort of tech companies who are the most forward-leaning when it comes to the adoption of AI agents in particular. And what happens in Silicon Valley generally comes to Main Street, a year or so later, and the rest of the world a couple of years after that. So it's pretty good. It's a pretty good forecasting mechanism if you're not, a Silicon Valley company or not an American company. And so why is this happening? Well, there's both the reality, like there's the substance of what AI agents can do, and then there's the myth, right? The belief. And like so many things in human endeavor, it's the belief set that's actually more important than the reality. So the belief in boardrooms and in the heads of CEOs is sort of captured on the slide that when I've got a workforce of humans, so let's say I got 300, well, we'll just go to my old company. So I had 200 employees in my old company, 6 offices around the world. Whenever you're dealing with a sizable workforce, your humans are going to work a maximum of 40 hours in a week, 48 weeks a year if you're doing well, so 1,900 hours approximately. But only a fraction of that is done at peak productivity, right? Maybe 5 to 8 hours worth of peak productivity from your human workforce. And humans, unfortunately, come with lots of negativity, right? They come with drama, they come with words like overtime, they come with HR complaints, they're prone to errors, they can be a liability. Great employees are really hard to find, really hard to create, right? You generally hire raw talent, train and shape, and you eventually have a great employee. And just when you get them great, they'll often move somewhere else, right? So great employees are hard to find and harder to retain. Now, let's contrast that to the belief set around AI agents. So that's the right-hand column, right? The first thing is that AI agents work 168 hours a week. That's 24/7, right? In our human brains, like we say 24/7 a lot. We don't actually do the math and realize that's 168, but it is. And so I do actually have AI agents working 168 hours in a week. So, but I'm sort of off the curve in terms of crazy adoption of AI. But remember, these are beliefs. So when you map that out over a year, it's 4.5 times as much labor, right, available with an AI agent. Remembering that an AI agent costs maybe 5% of the human. So it's 4.5 times more productive at 5% of the cost, right? Those economics right there, that's pretty much the whole ballgame. And you got to remember that these are belief sets. You don't have to necessarily agree with these, although I do. The second one is vital. AI agents have consistent output, no peaks and troughs. It's not 5 hours of peak productivity in a week. If an AI agent's running, it's running full ball, right? It's going as hard as it can, and it's going to be consistent output. If you enable it with the right tools and context, then AI agents do exactly what you want them to do. And as somebody who's employed a lot of humans, I can tell you that human employees don't do that. Those of you who are managers, you're probably nodding and smiling. And look, if an AI agent makes a mistake, which does happen, they only make it once, because you then modify that mistake into a new rule set. The AI agent will never, ever make that mistake again, if only humans were the same. Point 4 is vital, that if I have a terrific employee, I've got some of my employees on the line right now, and they're amazing, right? If I could clone Brian and Regent and Powell and have 100 of them, that'd be terrific, but I can't, right? With AI agents, you can do exactly that. If you've got an AI agent that is now running optimally, you can scale from 1 to 100 with the click of a button if you're using the right platform tool. So that ability to sort of clone awesomeness and scale awesomeness on demand is a very seductive feature of AI agents. And then this last point is more subtle, but the most important here. Once you've got an AI agent, great, it won't quit on you. It's intellectual property. It's code, essentially, that you now own, and it's scalable and it's saleable. So let's take a services business, right? So Well, I'll talk about Steve's business. So some of you know Steve Torso. He runs Wholesale Investor and Capital HQ, does terrific events in Australia. But he's essentially a services business, right? 20 employees. Steve's business is rapidly turning into an IP-based business where he's building agents. And those agents are being used right now to service his clients. But more importantly, those agents can be used to service clients all around planet Earth. So in Steve's case, instead of him just being a business that's focused on ANZ, Australia, New Zealand, all of a sudden he's turning into an intellectual property business. He can service a global English-speaking, audience, and that is both scalable and saleable, right? So that's a very powerful and underrated feature of sort of adopting AI agents at what I would call an industrial scale. And so, back to some quotes, like this is Mark Benioff who came out, this quote's now pretty old, but he came out and said that they've reduced their support costs by 17% by rolling out AI agents in Salesforce's CS group. Now, anybody who's used Salesforce knows that it's a beast, hard to use. So, this is good. I used to pay Salesforce $100,000 a month, so I know a little bit about its pros and cons. What Mark doesn't go on to say here is that this represents thousands of jobs and represents hundreds of millions of dollars worth of saving. Now, as a Salesforce shareholder, I love this, right? But as soon as you start talking about double digits like this, so, you got ThinkX, in this case, it's an enormous global customer support team for Salesforce.com. Then now 17% of that's now being run by AI agents. That is powerful, and it's in the same ballpark as sort of what Jack Dorsey's doing over at Block. So if we pause for a second and zoom out, let's sort of just tackle it sounds like a simple question, but it's not a simple answer. Like, what is an AI agent? And there's a very good chance none of you has worked with a real AI agent. If you're using ChatGPT, that's not an agent. If you're using Claude, that's not an agent. These are consumer AI tech tools. So imagine, if you would, a version of ChatGPT where it's private and built custom for you. It has access to all of your data. So it knows everything about you and your personal life, all your business data. It knows everything in the CRM about your customers, literally access to all of the information that you as a worker have access to through all your systems. Can access that in real time and nearly instantaneously, and then can do everything you do at a desk. So use Excel, write emails, read emails, watch video, listen to audio, create PowerPoints. That's what an enterprise AI agent looks like, and that tech is available here now today. We're gonna see a demo of it in a minute. So a good AI agent is indistinguishable from a remote worker, right? You can send them an email. You can chat with them. That's the user interface metaphor most of you are used to. But the difference is this remote employee, it's not in the Philippines or India or Chicago or New York. It's in the cloud. And not only can it do everything you can do at a computer, it does it better, right? And works faster and is 95% cheaper. So that is the tech we're here to talk about. And it's, I think, a mistake a lot of executives make is they're using ChatGPT or Claude, and they're either using the free plan or they're only paying $20 a month or something. And they take that experience and then try and project that onto all of AI agents. That's the equivalent of riding a 50cc toy motorbike and then thinking that represents all motor vehicles, right? When there's an 18-wheeler Mack truck just around the corner that can move tens of tons worth of freight. That's the distinction, right? So consumer AI tech, 50cc motorbike toy, 2 wheels, crap, waste of time. Enterprise AI agents, tractor trailer, semi-trailer. Can't quite move mountains, but close. And so that is actually what this slide says. So it's a bit more verbose. But I guess a central message here is do not take your experience with consumer AI tech tools and think that represents a good AI agent. A good AI agent does all these things here on the right-hand column. So it never hallucinates. It always cites claims into data, files, documents, your CRM, a database, whatever. It's task specific. It's not a generalist. So ChatGPT is, a generalist toy. Tries to be all things to all people and therefore is nothing to no one from a business perspective. A good AI agent is a master of a task, right? It can do financial modeling in Excel better than most human analysts, as an example. Good agents will scale vertically from 1 to 100. We've talked about that. They collaborate well with humans. So good AI agents will actually give jobs to humans to do, right? There's an expression, agents can't touch grass, which just means that there are certain things in this world that AI agents can't do, right? They can't touch grass. That's one thing. They can't deliver a package. So there are now websites where agents hire humans, which I find amazing and very science fiction, but that's a real website that exists right now. AI agents orchestrate other bits of technology. They work with other agents, so they'll work in teams or swarms. They reason, plan, and act. So that's a key distinction. I was doing an interview this morning on agents, and the example I use is this. Imagine if you want to book a business class ticket from LA to London, right? So it's whatever, 5, 6, 7,000 US dollars. If you use AI to research for that and find the best tickets and sort of be a decision support system, but you're the one who puts in your credit card, that's not an agent. An AI agent will do the research and then book the flight and spend your money. And so if you recoil from that, fair enough. But that's the level of trust inherent in certain agentic workflows. And there are lots of places where the agent will actually make a way better decision than a human will. All right, let's keep going. So let me help you visualize what a good agent can keep in its head. I'm a big guy, and a good AI agent can store 20 million words in its short-term memory, its brain, which is about 50,000 printed pages. So if you were to print all of that knowledge out and put it in a stack of paper, it'd be more than 3 times my height. I'm 6 foot tall. So that is more information than any human can hold in their head. It's more information than, frankly, you probably have in your business, right? You could load up everything in your customer CRM about all of your customers, everything in your support database and sort of technical support information. The last 5 years worth of financial documents and financial statements from your company. It's just an epic amount of information. Beyond that, you get into what's called needle in the haystack, where an agent's recall capabilities falls off. But the important thing to note is you don't work with one AI agent; you work with multiple. Right? And so, this is currently where performance falls off, and that'll change in the future. But even so, if you're working with 3 or 4 AI agents, you can visualize that that's just a stupendous amount of information that they can bring to bear in any conversation. And this is the point I was just making about multiple agents. Just like humans, AI agents work best in teams. So this example here is from a real life customer. So I actually see a member of the audience, Matthew. It's his uncle's company. So he's CEO of a think tank called EFQM, and my company built an agentic system for them. And so the sample query of, write me a report on sustainable excellence practices for my business, it resulted in a 30-page document with footnotes and citations. And, it was this sort of incredible work product that was delivered to their client, the sort of consulting business. And when we went back and traced through what it did, there were actually 6 different AI agents that worked together in a swarm to create that work product. And when we discussed with the senior executive who delivered the work how they would have done that in the past, their first answer was, we would have worked on it for several weeks and then delivered it. But that was BS. We probed deeper. The real answer is they just never would have done it, right? They would have faked some of it. They certainly wouldn't have had a footnote on every sentence. They just simply would not have created something with the depth and breadth and level of analysis that that this agent swarm did. So if this sounds interesting to you, shoot us an email, get in touch. We'd love to set you up with this same platform. that EFQM is using, and I'll be demoing here in a minute. A few more slides, and then we will actually go to a practical demo. A lot of people talk in metaphors when it comes to AI, and that's common when there's new tech around. We're all grasping for mental models that help us understand this new thing. And so Sundar Pichai, who's a very smart man, gave this quote, which makes him sound really dumb. AI is one of the most important things humanity is working on. It's more profound than, I don't know, electricity or fire. If you excise the I don't know from the sentence, what he's saying is actually pretty epic. Electricity and fire fundamentally altered the trajectory of humanity. And I think that is true of AI. I'm not sure it's as important as electricity or fire, but it's pretty important. And the second chart is interesting because it goes to this idea of the speed of change. So this plots how long it took various technologies to reach 1 billion and 100 million users. So Netflix or streaming video took a decade. Twitter, short-form multicast messaging, took 5 years. Social networking, 4 or 5 years. AI took 7 days to get to 100 million users, which is insane. But if we then go one order of magnitude bigger, let's go to how long it took to get to 1 billion users. Each of these 4 tech paradigms changed planet Earth, right? Personal computers, which took 20 years to get to 1 billion users from 1981 when the PC was first released. Cell phones, 20 years from military use, massive use. Internet was DARPANET, took 30 years to get to 1 billion users. Cloud computing. And each of these technology paradigms, had big impacts for planet Earth. AI is as big, I argue, as all 4 of these rolled into one. And AI took 6 months to get to 1 billion users. So we can argue till we're blue in the face about the scope of change that AI is bringing. But you can't argue with the speed of change. We've never seen any other technology paradigm that's even remotely close to AI in terms of adoption, right? And that pace is not going to abate. But while we're in the world of metaphor, my preferred mental model for AI is actually automobile technology. And many people don't think about automobiles as technology, but they absolutely were novel tech in their day, right? There was the horse and buggy, and there were horse-driven plows, and that was the landscape in the 1890s. And then 1908, Henry Ford releases the Model T, and sort of consumer minds change, and that's the aha moment where, consumers start adopting automobile tech. And fast forward to today, we all have cars. It's part of being adult. It's woven into every part of our life. We drive our kids to school. We drive to the office. But if you go back, what was the novel innovation that started all of that, right? It's this thing called the internal combustion engine, which was invented in about the 1840s. The first commercial, so sold, ICE was in 1860. So it was 48 years from the first combustion engine being for sale to the consumer revolution around cars, right? Where a harness, quote unquote, was put around it that made it useful to humanity. But that is only a part of the story. Business use of the internal combustion engine didn't take off until 1956, right? It's about 100 years after the novel innovation. And so today, 71% of goods by economic value travel by truck, right? Our economy is driven by automobile technology. And that didn't happen at the same time as the consumer revolution. And crucially, it required some other enabling technologies. So I argue that why did trucking take off in the 50s? Well, there was the Highways Act that was passed where Eisenhower wanted to pave America with concrete. He did so, which led to the US interstate. So all of a sudden, America was interconnected. Similar things happened in Europe. The other vital thing was the introduction of the standard shipping container, which allowed for the easy transfer of the goods from boats to trains to trucks. So it was that tapestry of interconnected technologies that then led to the emergence of trucking fleets and completely changed the economy, collapsed the price of goods because transportation costs plummeted, made oil one of the most precious commodities on earth. We now fight wars over it. And all of that tracks back to this novel innovation of the internal combustion engine. Let me now explain AI through that lens. The novel innovation was this thing called the transformer model, right? ChatGPT, GPT, generative pre-trained transformer. It's a fancy form of neural network, and we've had neural networks since the 80s. That's not new tech. What is new is the transformer, and that was invented by Google, funnily enough, in 2017, and they did nothing with it, right? They published this academic paper and slept on it. Sam Altman and Dario Amodei, now CEO of Anthropic, then a researcher at OpenAI, they took that, they ran with it, and they released ChatGPT in November 2022. We all know, when that happened. And the world changed. Within 6 months, we had 1 billion users of consumer AI chat. And that is the primary way that AI is being used today, consumer AI, right? It's the equivalent of the family sedan. It's vital, it's crucial, it's changing the world. It's everywhere. It is not the business use of AI. And so do not take your experience with consumer AI and think it is the same as commercial or enterprise AI. It's not. The business revolution hasn't really happened yet. It is starting. We're seeing things like the Jack Dorsey announcement of Block. And the business revolution is agents. And, that is the semi-trailer equivalent, right? So that scenario I gave before of like the 50cc motorbike versus the Mack truck, tractor trailer, that's the level of delta between consumer AI chat and enterprise AI agents. Now, stretching this metaphor one step further, if I may, in this new world, gasoline gets replaced by data, right? The thing that makes cars work is gasoline, petrol, depending on which part of the world you're in. The thing that makes AI work is data, right? So that is the backbone of this new economy that is being created. And so I then come to a quote that, that I wrote rather than the Sundar Pichai one. So Dario Amodei, he created ChatGPT. He at the time worked for Sam Altman at OpenAI. They famously had a big stoush. He left and created Anthropic. But Dario said this early last year, AI could wipe out half of all entry-level white-collar jobs and spike unemployment to 10 to 20% in the next 1 to 5 years. Most of them are unaware this is about to happen. It sounds crazy, and people just don't believe it. And that's the problem. People just don't believe it. So people are going to get clobbered by this. They're going to get ambushed by it, and they're going to learn about it when they lose their jobs. And I don't want that to be the case for any of you. So I'm glad you're on this webinar. But Dario is right, and let me show you why. Let's take Joe here in the middle. Joe is a junior partner in a services firm. Be a junior accountant, junior lawyer, junior partner at Accenture or McKinsey, doesn't matter. Let's look at what Joe does in his 40-hour work week, right? That's the left list. So he builds presentations, he sends emails, reads emails, he analyzes data in Excel, he does research with internal proprietary information, does research on the internet, he holds meetings and talks with other humans, he writes plans and programs of work to mobilize other humans. Right, that's his activity. Now let's talk about his demographics, right? So Joe's middle-aged guy, let's say he's like me, right? So white man in his 40s, he's got expensive degrees, and therefore he's an expensive resource, right? He's costing his company several $100,000 a year. He's not client-facing, he's not a rainmaker, he's not loved. He is in deep, deep trouble, right? Now, Joe represents millions of expensive professionals all around planet Earth. Right now, using AI tools that are available, at least half of Joe's work can be AI-ified. And if the company was sort of, really pushing it, as much as 80% of Joe's week can be AI-ified. But let's just go with 50% for now. So there's AI tools that can do vastly better work in Excel than Joe ever can, create vastly better presentations faster than Joe ever can analyze data at a level that Joe will never be able to do, can perform research at a level that Joe will never be able to do, and on and on and on. So if at this company there are 20 Joes, and all of a sudden 50 to 80% of Joe's work can be done by AI, the net result is that the company just doesn't need as many Joes. It doesn't mean that all Joes lose their job, nor does it mean that AI can do all of Joe's job. That's not the point. And this is where people fall down with their thinking about AI. It's usually driven by fear and ignorance, and I hate those two things. But people will snipe at AI and say, "Can't do this little thing over here." It's like, who cares? We're not eliminating all Joes. We're just saying that instead of 20 Joes at 200 grand a year, we're going to have 10 Joes or 5 Joes. And so the remaining Joes can do the little bits that the AI can't do. Right? So don't fall into that logical trap of being like, "Oh, I can't do this little bit of my job, so I'm safe, or my category's safe." That is not how this works. And so I put this slide up at conferences and I ask, "What do you see here?" I get various answers. On the left, I see Joe not using AI, right? Or a lawyer not using AI. On the right is agentic Joe. And when automobile technology hit agriculture, right, in the form of tractors versus horse-drawn plows, there was at least a 5-to-1 culling of jobs, right? Millions and millions and millions of farm workers lost their jobs, and it was called the Industrial Revolution. In some parts of the world, it led to government revolution. But it was partly because of this, in large part, the mechanization of agriculture. And so mechanized agribusinesses then became the norm. And then the same thing happened in factories. That's happening in the knowledge economy right now. It's happening vastly faster than the Industrial Revolution, which took 100 years from start to finish. This is happening in months and quarters. And I'll talk now about my profession, computer coding. There are 27 million paid programmers on planet Earth, and we're only going to need maybe 500,000 pretty much right now. That's the tech picture. It takes time for humans to adopt tech. But right now, AI agents for coding outperform 99% of human programmers. And speaking from experience, I'm speaking to somebody who's employed hundreds of software engineers. Software engineers are incredibly expensive employees. They're actually high maintenance employees. Getting good ones is hard. Keeping good ones is harder. And the AI labs, as to put it in Dario Emoto's language, they've solved coding. Now, the reason they focused on coding is because they write computer code themselves. So they're building tools that they can then dog food and use themselves in their own core business. But it is of massive geopolitical and global importance that there is now technology that outperforms 99% of human coders at 5% of the cost. And I don't know what that means for planet Earth, but it means something. But you've got to abstract and analogize from that, because it's not just coding that AI can do. A lot of people say that, "Oh, AI can't do my job." So I then point to this study done by the New England Journal of Medicine collaboration with Microsoft, where they took 300 of the most diagnostically challenging cases in history. And they had blue team, red team. Blue team was a bunch of senior human medicos from Johns Hopkins and Harvard, Mayo Clinic, the best in America. Red team was a team of AI agents. This study was done 2 years ago. So this is old AI tech, but it was an excellent architecture. It was a team of agents approach. And each AI agent sort of had a role in this team. And together as a swarm, they destroyed the human doctors, right? The doctors got the diagnosis right 20% of the time, 1 in 5. Team of AI agents got it right 85% of the time, 85.5% of the time. So there's a staggering difference in terms of the quality of the output using old AI tech, but architected well, right? And there's this new study out from Anthropic where there's various benchmarks in AI land to measure the goodness of an AI model. The one that I like the best, and the one that this is based on, is where it measures the performance of economically valuable work. So not theoretical, but in legal, that would be reviewing a contract, right? In coding, it would be building an app with fewer bugs per 1,000 lines of code than a human team does, and on and on and on. And so it's a complex benchmark. And when agentic systems are run through that benchmark, you end up with this spider graphic where blue represents agentic capabilities. So depending upon the field, AI is now almost as good as the most senior human professionals in management, business and finance, computer and math, architecture, da, 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 da. The red, on the other hand, is where it's currently adopted, right? So you can see here, computer and math leads the pack, that's software engineering, but it's still nothing close to the full capabilities of what AI can do. And so it's this delta between red and blue where there's enormous opportunity for the entrepreneurial and there's enormous danger for the lethargic, right? You can see that, legal, the capabilities of AI agents in sort of the legal domain are now really high, but adoption is quite slow. In the next 5 years, lawyers that agentify are going to thrive. Lawyers that don't are going to die. I was once a lawyer. A lot of my friends are lawyers, and I know that space very well. And I assure you that AI does much, much, much better legal research and analysis at maybe 1% of the cost of what a lawyer charges. Right? My lawyers charge me minimum $500 an hour, up to $2,000 an hour for senior partner work, and that is going away. Right? That economic model, which is prevalent in the Western world, of lawyers charging these obscene amounts of dollars per hour, that is going to go away in the next 5 years. So we're talking about massive change, and this slide is one to watch because it will change over time. This is my last slide, and then we can do a demo. So if you do have questions or things you want me to demo or things you want me to talk more about, please find that Q&A option. And this is probably my most important slide. And this is the one that very few AI consultants will tell you about. I share it publicly, but I've been sharing this in private with boards and CEOs for 2 years. If cost saving is your goal, this is the math, the cold hard math that's driving layoffs. And cost saving is not always the goal. I want to stress that, right? Government institutions, education institutions, small companies, cost saving is not the goal. They want to grow the pie that the economic pie that they're all involved with. They want to chase bigger markets. So my friend Steve, with his 20 employees, he won't fire anybody with AI. He'll just tackle a much bigger problem. Same thing with Russell, Matthew's uncle. But in most companies, this is the math. So we've got a services company here. We've got 73 employees. And you take a spreadsheet and you sort it from the most expensive humans at the company through to the least expensive humans at the company. So your CEO and your other C-suite members are at the top. Yes, they're expensive, but there's only one of them. At the bottom, you've got your junior burgers who don't cost very much. In this case, 25 grand. So these would have to be offshore resources. And in the middle, you have a whole bunch of Joes, right? So in this case, we have 20 Joes that are costing $200,000 a year each between base, bonus, payroll tax, fully loaded costs. And for the employees on the line, you've got to remember your salary is not your cost, right? To us bosses, if we're paying you 150 grand a year, you're probably costing us 220 or 200, depending upon the geo. So please remember that. But in this case, we've got 20 Joes at 200 a pop. Now, the Joes only represent 27% of the headcount, but they represent 58% of the cost of this business. And today's AI agents can replace 50 to 80% of the work that the Joes do, which means we only need half as many Joes or perhaps only 20% as many Joes. So we're not going to eliminate all the Joes. We're just going to eliminate most of them, right? And building AI systems to automate the middle of the spreadsheet is where smart AI practitioners and CEOs are focused. It's not automating the junior burgers because their costs aren't that big. The ROI, therefore, is not that good. Their tasks are bitty and granular and usually not that standardized. And from a tech perspective, it's not much harder to automate the middle of the spreadsheet than it is to automate the bottom, but the ROI is dramatically higher, right? We could let's say we could AIify the total row 19. So we remove 68% of the headcount, but we only remove 18% of the cost. If, on the other hand, we can remove 80% of row 10, it has dramatic impacts on the economics of this company. All right, so let's go into some practical stuff now. So I'm gonna fire over into Sapience and demo it for you. This was the slide I was looking for. So here's a quote from me. AI agents are amazing for ownership, terrifying for the average employee. Don't be average. So now I'm going to pop over to my browser. So I don't have any questions or suggestions of focus areas on the line. So I'll sort of do my normal overview, and hopefully some of you will put some comments or questions or things you'd like to see in here. All right, so what is Sapience? So Sapience is an operating system, okay? Like all the operating systems you know, iOS or Mac OS or Windows. It's got apps, but in this case, they're agents. It's got an app store where you can get new technology. But crucially with Sapience, what you do is you get access to the best AI tech from all the big companies. So when you buy a new Sapience, you get everything from OpenAI, Anthropic, Claude, Gemini, and all of Google's tech, all of Perplexity's tech, and about another 100 vendors beyond that, but these are the big four. This website that I'm scrolling through was built by Sapience, which I think is pretty terrific. Sapience is used by sort of big companies and governments around the world. It's also used by small teams, teams of 15, 20, 30 employees. So don't think it's only a big company tool. Fundamentally, a system that is designed with sort of trust at its core. So it's something that your users and your employees will trust and use, and every claim it ever gives you, it cites through to source data. But it's also built with sort of security as a fundamental paradigm. So it's something that your CISO or your head of IT security will be very happy with. And these are some of its hero features, right? So we talked about earlier, you get access to all the best AI tech from all the major companies. You get agents that genuinely can work 168 hours a week for you, so they can work overnight. It comes with a whole series of built-in AI agents, so tasks for specific AI agents. And then there's an AI store where you can install lots of additional functionality. And then it then takes a bunch of old technology categories and rewrites them for AI. So it comes with an entire cloud file storage system, so you can ditch Dropbox or Google Drive. It comes with an AI native writing experience where, you can just have a chat with an AI agent and then it'll write a beautiful document for you. You can also type with a keyboard if you choose to. And it comes with a project management surface, which your humans will use, but more importantly, allows you to manage agents. So with Sapience, you could replace many of your traditional tools with one subscription. And most importantly, you get access to the best AI tech from all the major labs with one subscription. And if any of you want access to what I'm going to be demoing here today, just get in touch with us. You can reply to the email that you got the meeting invite through, and one of my team will probably reach out to you as well. So here I am I'm in Sapience, right? So you know what I might do is I might actually just fire up a tour. So Sapience is built around agents. So that's the first thing. Is when I log into Sapience, I'm here to manage my team of digital employees, right? There's then notes, which I was talking about. That's the writing option, files, which is the file system, and then projects. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to say I want a new chat. And immediately this is different, right? If you're in ChatGPT or Claude, you can just get into a text box where you type in. Whereas I've got 25 different AI agents here that I've installed. Now, you wouldn't normally see all of these. I've installed a lot of agents. But up here in the AI store, you'd be able to go and browse and get whatever it is that you like. And so just some other points of difference. Some people like ChatGPT. Well, the whole of ChatGPT you can install and use. So if you do like ChatGPT, cool, that's just an agent in our agent store. Same thing with Claude Code. You can install Claude Code if you want to do that. So it becomes a one-stop platform where you get access to all the latest and greatest stuff. But let's go and look at some of the things that it can do. So, so let's have a look at this one. Yesterday, I was curious about the Baldrige excellence model, which is sort of the American excellence model. Had this very detailed conversation with Sapience about it. But that was not the thing I was looking for. I go to say, this is better. So this is the case study from EFQM. So in this case, I gave Sapience 1 million data points, right? So it was roughly 10. Let me get my numbers right. It was 1,000 times 1,000. It's about 1,000 companies that involved and about 1,000 data points per company. So about approximately 1 million data points. And obviously, I can't wrap my head around all of that. So I gave it to the Sapience data analyst agent, and it created this beautiful sort of interactive dashboard for me, which I thought was quite cool. But I then asked it to create a 3D visualization of the data set in a certain way, and it gave me this, which isn't very impressive. And I showed this to the CEO of EFQM, and he said, "Gee, it'd be cool if that was interactive." And I accidentally moved the mouse like this and discovered that it was, in fact, interactive. And he and I were sort of two giddy schoolboys when we discovered this. So it was sort of emergent behavior. It was the AI doing things I didn't know it could do at the time. And if I hover over this one here, this is their best scoring client ever. But EFQM has changed their business based on the insights that they're getting from their data with Sapience. And that's an interesting use case because they had all this data that had been sitting there for years and years and years, but they hadn't been able to get value out of it. And now using the data analyst agent Sapience, which is a hardcore task-specific expert agent, they can unlock that value. So if I go to, we'll just look at some of the other things. Here is an example of Sapience, creating brochures. So in this case, it's doing it for my own company, right? Now, why do I bring this up? I can't do design. Lots of skills I've got. I can't do design. So in the past, I would have had my designer. I have an employee who's a designer who works for me, and I would have had him create this. It would have taken a couple of days, back and forth, back and forth. Instead, I built this in Sapience in about 30 seconds. And it was good enough and great enough that I PDF'd it out and used it, right? So it's a tiny use case, but it's an example of I don't have that skill set, and with Sapience, all of a sudden, I've got it. What else am I going to show you? Well, here's an example. So I was having a meeting with a live customer. Okay, it was the company that runs the metro system in Dubai, and they were trying to figure out how could we use this tech. And I was like, well, it was sort of creating presentations or websites or whatever, like anything sort of in the marketing world important to you. And they said, oh, actually, yeah, we burn a huge amount of time and money creating all of these sort of different micro websites for different communities in different languages. So in real time, while speaking to them, Sapience built this, right? It took about a minute and it created, it actually retrieved the map, and they told me that map is right and real. And this is a website, right? And then they asked me, well, that's in English, we need it in Arabic. So I then gave the same thing, and it spat it out in Arabic. And they were astonished by this because, and their feedback was, that's something that would have taken 2 weeks duration, and who knows how many iterations between them and their agency to have built previously, right? So, and in both of these cases, this is using the marketing agent within Sapience. But let's just do a live demo. I don't have questions coming in from y'all, so I will just pick something at random. Let's go, let's do healthcare, and let's do the medical research agent. But this is an AI agent that has access to a huge amount of sort of data in the background. It will connect into data, sort of proprietary databases. So that's worth knowing that Sapience connects into about 200 different systems, and we pay for that and integrate that so that you don't have to. But I like this second one. So find clinical trials on GLP receptor agonists for weight management. I can afford to lose some weight, so I'm just going to pick the slide output mode, and I'm going to click on that, and we'll let it work for a second. Now, while this is working, I'll just show you some things about it. So if I click features up here, first we'll see that this agent is built on Anthropic technology. So it's using Claude Opus 4.6. That's the very best reasoning model available on Earth right now. It's slow and expensive, but amazing. And you likely don't have access to it in your life. But with Sapiens, you sort of get access to the latest and greatest. Here's a list of the skills that this agent has. So this one can't code, but it can search the web. It can handle files. It's got memory. It can do computer vision. That means it can analyze drawings, can send email. So if I go back, we'll have a look. So retrieving org style guide, explain that in a second, calling remote endpoint. So this means it's going off and talking to these proprietary data sources, right? So this is an example of AI agents, working with other bits of technology. The org style guide's interesting because I asked it to do slides. The first thing it did is check its memory for, okay, is there like a rule set from the chief marketing officer for me to follow as a style guide? Cool. So now it's spitting out slides. Okay. Good. Oh, it's still going. Okay. Still working. You can see 4 of 8. So we'll let that finish its sort of generation. Now, I have used this recently. I've recently had some health issues. And I've used this medical research agent recently to learn more about my condition and in the last 2 weeks, because I recently had an episode, and in the last 2 weeks, I've learned more about this sort of blood disorder than I have in the 3 years since I was first diagnosed. So that's a real life, sort of anecdote from me. But here's an 8-page deck. It's still working about GLP receptors with beautiful charts and graphics. And like just in your personal life, can you imagine your doctor giving you this? I mean, like what alternate reality would we have to be living in where a doctor could create this for you? And yet you can get access to far better sort of information here than your doctors can give you access to. And you can see here it's pulling from Johns Hopkins. It will have pulled from PubMed. It's pulled from the National Institute of Health. So everything it's researched here, like these are academic journal articles, right? So these are all PubMed IDs coming from completely validated sources. This is not internet research. So there's one live example of me using a very detailed agent. Now, I don't know if this will work, but let's try it. I'll change the skill and I'll go to say charts. I'm like, can you create some charts using the data you retrieved? Now, I didn't read what it read on for the slides, but I'll just give you another example of sort of it using discrete skills. Now, skills are pretty important things in agent land. And you'll see with Sapiens, there's all these built-in skills, but you can add more and install more. You can also, hang on. There we go. Perfect. I haven't finished rendering. So, now it's creating dynamic, interactive charts based upon the data that it pulled from those clinical trials. Now, I don't know about you, but I'm a visual guy. I'm never going to go and read 9 articles about GLP drugs, but I will read these slides and I will read these charts, right? Look at it's still going, amazing. So here what we're seeing in real time is it doing incredibly complex research and then rendering it into very accessible and understandable, visualizations, first in slide mode and now in chart mode. And so hopefully you can abstract from those sorts of number crunching capabilities to whatever it is in your work life that you're dealing with. Because we don't have requests on the Q&A channel, I haven't tailored this the way I like to for the audience. So look, I'm conscious that we're running out of time, but with Sapience, Sapience gives you the semi-trailer of AI tech, right? So consumer AI chat, ChatGPT, these are toys, something like Sapience, and there are other AI platforms. I'm not here to say that we're the only one on earth. Something like Sapience, you get access to this entire team of agents where you can do real and meaningful work across many task-specific AI agents that are expert at their thing, can accelerate you and make you go faster, can accelerate your entire team. It's very much an organizational sort of tool, right? So it's designed for collaboration. I'll just pick a random project here, right? So in this particular project, there are 15 humans in the project team with all sorts of various permissions, and there's all sorts of notes and files and resources. There's a whole project management system where I can add a task. And crucially, when I'm using sort of Sapience for project management, I can allocate a task to a human or to an AI agent, right? And that's incredibly powerful. So I can delegate work here to AI agents, and equally AI agents can delegate work to humans, which is kind of cool. So it's a platform that gives you access to the latest and greatest tech that makes collaboration between humans and agents real and powerful and now, that allows you to schedule agents to work around the clock, right? So I can go in here and I can schedule an agent job to work hourly or daily. And fundamentally, you get access to this whole swarm of expert agents. So, pretty much whatever the task is that you need help with, whether it's building websites, analyzing data, doing financial analysis, doing legal research, medical research, you name it, we already have an agent for it, or we have a partner who is currently developing an agent for it at the moment. So I'm conscious that we're out of time, folks. I hope this has been useful. You will likely get an email from one of my team members offering to get you set up in Sapience and sort of talk to you about what challenges you're facing with AI or things you'd like to learn more about. We generally do these webinars as a bit of a public service, right? There's nothing in it for us other than if you're interested in Sapience, we'd love to talk to you about it. There'll be another one of these that we're doing on Wednesday as well. And then later this month and next month, we'll be having some guests on. So we'll be sort of interviewing people who are sort of going deep with AI agents and how it's transforming their business. That's all from me. Thanks for your time, and hopefully we'll talk in the future. Okay. Thank you. Bye-bye.